Brody King, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good, man. How are you guys?
We're good, man. We're good. Like I said, I feel a bit embarrassed now because you've got an immaculate beard, and I feel like I'm letting the side down a little bit.
Well, I think I've had about 5 years of not cutting it, so
that'll do it.
Yeah,
that'll be why. Yeah, I'm about 2.5, so that's why I'm catching you up.
I'm about.
Yeah, Callum always shaves his off, and I keep telling him to stop doing it, and then he'll grow it back, and then he'll shave it off again. I give up with him.
I get to the point where like it starts itching. I can't take it anymore, so I shave it off. I keep the mustache, but then I look like a serial killer. So I take off the mustache, and then I just repeat the cycle. So yeah.
Well, there's nothing worse than the guys that grow their beard but then shave their mustache off. Like that's the weirdest.
Oh, I don't get that.
I don't get that at all.
Right? If you're gonna, I understand keeping the tash because mustaches are quite trendy. But why would you get rid of this but keep this?
Yeah,
I get it.
So strange.
Yeah, I keep saying though because he looks like a cross between a serial killer and Freddie Mercury when he leaves his mustache. So I mean, he needs to do something. But before we chat wrestling, I've got to talk to you about God's Hate. I've just been listening to some. I was oblivious to the fact that you had a band, and I was like, I'm going to listen to God's Hate today, and I can't stop playing. So how did the whole band come along? Has music always been a passion of yours?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been into punk and hardcore music I've been into punk music since I was probably like 12 years old. That was like my introduction to like aggressive music, and then got into like the hardcore scene around 16, and that's kind of that was always my like first love, I guess. And then I was in and out of bands, and God's Hate started right before I started wrestling, so that kind of like started at the same time.
I put it on today. I thought, well, I'm going to check these out, and I've not stopped playing. I've been listening to Mass Murder, and it's incredible, man. It's one hell of a record.
He's already told me I have to check it out after the interview because it's like the kind of stuff you'll like. So I'm going to check it out after we've done this because I didn't know you was in a band either.
We have a new record coming out next year, probably around February or March, that I think is much better than Mass Murder, but I love Mass Murder as well.
It's interesting how many wrestlers are musicians as well, because Zicky Dice, he's a bit of a rocker too, isn't he? He's in a band as well.
And Andy Williams, is in Every Time I Die. Massive band.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, are you looking to tour if the world opens up? Could we see you over here in the UK with the band?
We've never played the UK, and that's definitely like one of our like bucket list place. Some of the members of our band are in some bigger bands, like this band called Twitching Tongues and a couple others. And they've toured Europe like 1 million times, and they're like, I don't ever want to go back to Europe, but I would love to go back to the UK. So
really,
yeah, we would definitely love to knock the UK out. That's for sure.
We always say we find it weird when people say, "Oh, we need to go to the UK," because we're desperately trying to get out of here all the time. I can't imagine why anyone would want to come here.
I'll tell you what, though, you bring God's Hate over to the UK, I'll be front row. I will be there because I can't stop listening. And the new record, I will be making sure I get that as well. It's so good, man. I mean, I was just listening to it again, and I'm just like, it's so good. I mean, who were some of your inspirations as well? Because I was listening to Violent Procreation, and I got a bit of a Slipknot vibe. I don't know if that was just me, but is that an inspiration?
No, not really. Bands like Hatebreed and Terror and this band Marauder from New York, like those are probably like the main inspirations for that record. But I mean, we listen to a lot of hardcore and death metal and stuff like that. So it's just that's kind of what comes out.
Excellent, man. Well, I will be checking out more of your stuff. I couldn't stop playing it. I really couldn't. But let's talk wrestling as well. Obviously, we haven't spoken to many people who were trained at Santino Brothers. How did that come about? What was that like, the training there?
So it kind of came about by accident. One of my friends like met an old wrestler, and he was like, if you ever want to try it out, run the ropes, take a bump, like let me know. And he did like a couple sessions with this old time wrestler, and I saw photos of it. And I was like, how do I do this? And we went to a Santino's like dojo show, just a little student show. And the next day I signed up for their beginners class, and that was May of 2014. And so yeah, that was kind of where that started. And training at Santino's, seeing the way that like other schools are ran, like I feel like Santino's is kind of a step above. Like they really push you to be, the finished product by the end of it. Like a lot of schools, they'll have you wrestle for a couple months and then they'll like start you in doing matches. But at Santino's, you have to kind of be competent in the ring before you start doing matches, which I kind of agree with. I know that some people are like, they want kind of on the job training, but I think that it's important for your first impression to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually mention this on most of the shows if we mention training. I did train for a few years, and looking back, I mean, I was the worst wrestler in the UK. Like by far. I did not deserve to be in a ring, but that's the point, really. Like they said to me, "You can be on the show tonight if you take a chop right now," and I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So I took a chop, and they were like, "Right, you're on the show." My match was terrible, and looking back, it's like maybe I should have waited until I was the finished product because I might still be wrestling now.
Yeah.
You're completely right. There's a lot of places where they're just looking to fill a spot on the show. The trainees will wrestle for free, so they put the trainees on the show. But there should be, like you said, more training before people are put onto shows, because why wouldn't you want to be your best when you debut, as a trainee?
Yeah, I feel like when I debuted, or when I started wrestling, a lot of people were like, "You've only been wrestling like a couple months?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Wow, like you're far ahead of like most people that have only been wrestling a couple months."
Yeah.
And that went for the same with a couple people that I came up with, like Jake Atlas, that's in NXT right now. Me and him started at like the same time, and we had like kind of the same trajectory. Like he got injured and was like 6 months to a year behind me as far as debut, but like we kind of both, were very impressive within our first year of wrestling.
Yeah, because he's another guy who's doing amazing stuff in NXT now as well. Because I wasn't wholly familiar with him till NXT, and now I'm like, this guy's incredible. I love the work he's doing at the moment on NXT, and it's great to watch. He's so good.
Yeah, he's one of the best athletes that I know personally.
Yeah, he's gonna do well for himself. But speaking of doing more for themselves, I mean, I tuned into Ring of Honor recently. I was mentioning to Jamie, you can watch Ring of Honor on Fight. The fact that it's free on Fight TV is just mind blowing. So us in the UK, we're mad for Ring of Honor. It's always had such a good fan base over here. So I've been watching maybe the last month or two of Ring of Honor, binging it all, and I saw your match with Dalton Castle, and he's a former Ring of Honor World Champion, and you got a pretty clean win over Dalton. And even the commentary was saying, "Are we looking at a future Ring of Honor World Champion here?" Talk us through that. I mean, what's your thought process here? Is that something you've got your sights definitely set on for 2021?
I mean, I would say yes and no. As far as like the importance of being world champion, I don't think that is the goal. Like that's not what's important to me. What's important to me is like establishing my style of wrestling within Ring of Honor, which I feel is what the original Ring of Honor is.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what's important, is to bring, what people fell in love with Ring of Honor back to Ring of Honor. And I feel like that's what's been kind of missing as of late, especially, in recent years when people have come and gone. I feel like some people weren't there to elevate or keep pushing the company in that direction. And it's not due to lack of talent. We have an insane roster of talent. I feel like it's just everyone just needs to be on the same page with pushing in that direction. So
I get that.
I feel like, not to say that I can be a leader in that direction, but I would like to try to be, at least. So, and being champion kind of like starts that trend.
I get that. Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, think back over the 18 years that Ring of Honor's been around. Has it ever had a bad roster in that time? It hasn't. It's always had one of the best rosters in the world. The talent in Ring of Honor has always been incredible. And the amount of stars that have come from Ring of Honor, like your Tyler Blacks, your Bryan Danielsons, Nigel McGuinness, there's never been a lack of talent in Ring of Honor. But I can't quite put my finger on where it changed from like that Ring of Honor that used to be, when you'd get like Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe putting on classics and stuff. It was more about the in-ring, I found, like the in-ring action, the physicality. And at some point, I feel like it became a different product, but not in a bad way. What are you looking to bring back to Ring of Honor in that sense? Because is it the hard-hitting style or like the passion that Ring of Honor used to have? What is it you wanting to bring back?
Yeah, I feel like you said, it changed, and I feel like the change came with like guys like the Young Bucks and the Elite and stuff like that. They kind of, pushed the company in a different direction. Like you said, not in a bad way. But once they left, it kind of left a big void, and I don't think anybody knew where the company was in its identity.
Sure.
And I would, I would say that I was never, my wrestling fandom, like I kind of fell out when I was a teenager. I kind of came back in my 20s a little bit, like with the CM Punk, like Straight Edge Society stuff. Yeah. But I was never like a big independent fan. Like I didn't know of Ring of Honor. I didn't know of like independent wrestling. So it's like when I started training, that's when I started becoming aware of it. And that's when I started watching guys like Low Ki and Samoa Joe and like those guys, Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness, like, and that was like what made me fall in love with wrestling and made me want to really be a wrestler. So right. To bring that style back, the hard hitting, the competitive, the violence back to Ring of Honor, I feel like that's what we need. Is when you watched, like I recently watched Samoa Joe's debut in Ring of Honor when he wrestled Low Ki, and it's like they're just beating the shit out of each other for like 15 minutes. It's like it's such a like there's so many times when I'm watching Ring of Honor where I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like I watched Low Ki versus Kenta at Final Battle 2005 or 6, and it's a half an hour of like the most amazing match I've ever seen in my life.
Insane, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So it's like I want people to have that feeling where they're watching it and they're just like, they're awestruck the entire time.
Yeah, I'm completely sold on that, man. Like, I think I might be your biggest fan now. If you can somehow make current day Ring of Honor anything like the Ring of Honor of the past, like 2005 Ring of Honor, I mean, it's what needs to happen. I think the Pure Championship tournament's been a great start because the Pure Championship has a great history in that company, representing the more technical side. But like you said, with Low Ki and Samoa Joe, Low Ki and Kenta, Nigel McGuinness, Bryan Danielson, all beating the absolute crap out of each other. That's what really drew me into independent wrestling. And I feel like it is the last ingredient that Ring of Honor is missing right now. There hasn't been a match in a while that's really made me go, like cringe because of the physicality or anything. So if that's what you're wanting to bring back, then fair play to you. I think that's a great idea.
I know that there's you said that you've had Carrie on a couple times, right?
Yeah.
So there's been a couple times where like I really felt like, you're proud after a good match, but there was a couple times where like I really hold these matches in high regard because it was one of them was me and PCO versus the Briscoes when we won the tag titles, and it was like very physical, very bloody, and then like after it, Kerry came up to me and he said, "That's Ring of Honor. Like that's what Ring of Honor is." And like he said it during that match, and he also said it during our 6-man. It was Villain Enterprises versus Mexa Squad when they won the titles off us, and he said it again then. And it's like to get that recognition from Kerry, who's seen all of it, for him to come up to me and be like, "That's what Ring of Honor is." Like that's what makes me want to elevate Ring of Honor more.
Sure. Yeah. That's great, isn't it? Coming from Kerry, I mean, is that he's like you said, he's seen it all. He's seen all the matches from early to mid Ring of Honor. even present day, still an ambassador with Ring of Honor. He's still watching the product. So for him to come up and say that's Ring of Honor, that must be great to hear.
Yeah, I mean that's all I could hope for, and I feel like that's what people have always kind of looked at Ring of Honor as like a segue. Like they've looked at it as you make your name in Ring of Honor and then you elevate to a different company, and it's like I feel like we can make Ring of Honor that company. We can bring it back to the prestige of like, this is Ring of Honor and we're here to stay. Yeah. Like you said, the pure title tournament was a good start, but I feel like, Jonathan Gresham, I think, is a great person to have as an ambassador for that title and for that division. And he wants to, bring honor back to Ring of Honor, whatever he says. But it needs to be more than just technical mat-based wrestling. Like, you had guys like Homicide and you had guys like Necro Butcher, and like Ring of Honor wasn't just technical wrestling. No. It was the best of all wrestling. And I think when you have guys like Bandito and you have guys like, Rey Horus and Flamita, and you have like the best luchadors, and you have like guys like PCO and Mark Briscoe and Jay Briscoe who are willing to go get bloody and just like beat the hell out of each other. And you have guys like Jonathan Gresham and Tracy Williams, and like, we have Jay Lethal, who's undoubtedly one of the greatest wrestlers maybe to ever do it.
Yeah.
So it's like we have the talent and we have the well-roundedness. We just need the focus, and we need everyone to just have that like passion to really bring it.
It's like you said, you need everyone on the same page, where it's not seeing Ring of Honor as the stepping stone to the next company. It needs to be, you come to Ring of Honor because Ring of Honor is the company. That's where you're going to make your name. That's where you want to stay. That's the company you want to elevate, rather than just elevating yourself and moving on somewhere else. It's like I said, Ring of Honor has made no shortage of stars. They've made so many of the household names for WWE. Like if they've made Seth Rollins, for example, Bryan, they all came for Ring of Honor. Adam Cole, exactly. Without Ring of Honor, there isn't these guys. But there needs to be a point as well where these guys are staying in Ring of Honor because Ring of Honor is the company they want to elevate. And hopefully that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's my goal, at least. So that's kind of where my vision is with going towards the World Championship.
Yeah. Well, it's going to happen at some point, right?
I hope so.
Obviously, we mentioned Villain Enterprises and PCO as well. We spoke to PCO a couple of months ago, and such a nice guy. We stayed up. I think it was 3:00 in the morning here for us to speak to him, and it was so funny because he came on the screen and he was in this room, but he was obviously had the heating on too much. He was dripping with sweat. It was so funny. He's like, I'm in this really warm room and I can't turn the heat down and I'm dripping with sweat. But what was it like working with PCO? I mean, he's in his 50s and he's doing some of the best work of his career.
Yeah, I mean, working with PCO is like, it's the most stressful thing in the world, but also like you said, he's one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. Like being on the road with him and just being, friends with him is awesome. Like he's truly like a great person and, a good person to be with and to learn from. And like, he's wrestled everybody. He's wrestled forever. And, when you hear stories, like there was one funny thing where he did a move that I had been doing recently. And I jokingly was like, what the hell, Carl? You stole my shit. He goes, oh, well, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize it. I used to do that move with Bret Hart back in like 1996. I was like, oh, never mind. But so yeah, you get stuff like that, and you get like the stories of him on the road and in the 90s and stuff, which is always awesome. When Villain Enterprises did like an homage to the Road Warriors, and we wore like the spike pads and stuff like that. Yeah. I guess Animal was a little hot about it and kind of made a post saying that we were trying to like steal his shit, and it was like, no, it's not about that. And like PCO's like texting Animal like, hey man, like no disrespect, like we're all just like massive fans. It's like, oh, okay, well, we have Carl to take care of that.
That was real, right?
But then you're calling a match with them, and he's like, I think I'm going to do this today. And you're like, Carl, are you sure? Like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And he goes, no, it'll be fine. And then he does it. And, part of you just kind of like, it takes your breath away for a second. Your heart skips a beat. And then he gets up and you're like, okay, we're good.
He
But
delivers.
I would say the two scariest parts of me in my career with him were at Madison Square Garden when he got power bombed outside of the ring.
Yeah,
I was like, there's no way he's okay. And then he was fine. And then the other one was at Center Stage in Atlanta when he dove out of the ring and smashed his face into the ground. And he came around the side and he's just covered in blood. And like, I swear to God, I could see his skull. And he's just like, I'm like, dude, you okay? He goes, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, okay. And he got like 30 stitches, internal and external. And then afterwards, he's like, yeah, it's good for the gimmick, right? I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like, everyone would be horrified to have this like Frankenstein scar on their forehead. And he's like excited about it.
Good for the gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah. Good for the gimmick.
That's such a wrestler thing to say.
Yeah, it was just, I remember when we spoke, it was just so funny because I think as well, I think he had the camera upside down, so he had his head down and his chin at the top.
Yeah, he was upside down. He was topless.
He was just
amazing.
It was so funny. Yeah, so funny. He was just muttering to himself, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And it was just so cool to speak to him. You touched as well on, obviously, Madison Square Garden. What was that like? Obviously, as a wrestling standpoint, that's almost the mecca. What was it like getting to compete there?
I mean, that was, it was unbelievable. I had just debuted in December, and that match was in April. So it's like when I signed with Ring of Honor, I was like, it would be cool to wrestle in Madison Square Garden. It would be cool to be in the Battle Royale. And then, we get the announcement that we're going to be Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, and 2, we're going to be wrestling in this like marquee match in a 4-way against 3 unbelievable tag teams. And like, so that was a huge moment. Like I flew my parents out to be there, and it was a really cool moment.
Yeah, I remember we spoke to Kerry about it because Kerry told us about Vince trying to put a stop on it. And how it still went ahead, so it was cool to see another company there as well. Because it's a special venue. When you think wrestling, it's a special venue. I've had the pleasure of being there. I've not seen a show there, but I've had a tour. And just as I walked through the doors, I got goosebumps just as a fan. Mm-hmm. I'm like, God, Andre the Giant's walked through this door. Vince McMahon's walked there. It was such a cool thing. So to perform there must have been incredible for you. It really must have been. But the other thing I wanted to touch on as well, because I'm a huge old school fan, and NWA, the Crockett Cup, you and PCO, you won the Crockett Cup, you won the NWA Tag Team titles. What was that like? I mean, to your name is now in history as a Crockett Cup winner.
Yeah, I mean that was another unexpected thing. Is we got asked to be in the Crockett Cup, and we got asked to be there with, the Rock and Roll Express is there, and the Briscoes are there, and you have all these great tag teams, and they're like, you guys are going to win the titles tonight. We're like, what? Like, the prestige of that, it's like, it's insane. You have the Road Warriors, and you have like Nikita Koloff and Dusty Rhodes, and then you have PCO and Brody King. It's like, okay, like, I guess this is where it's coming to. But yeah, it's like that was, like you said, in the history books of wrestling, my name is next to some of the all-time greats now. So
forever.
Yeah, forever.
In a way, forever. That's in the history books. That's cool.
It is. I mean, I'm a huge, like, old school NWA fan as well. So for the Crockett Cup coming back and then seeing you and PCO win and those titles, I mean, those tag team titles are beautiful as well. So to see you guys getting them was amazing. But speaking of Ring of Honor as well, I mean, what's it been like being able to obviously compete in New Japan as well? Because there's a nice relationship there. What's it like being going over to Japan and competing there?
I mean, when I started, so Rocky Romero is one of my trainers as well. After I kind of finished up with Santino's, he was running classes at a school out here, and it was crazy because there's only like, 5 or 6 people that would show up to his classes, and he's a world traveled wrestler like for 20 years, has worked in every great company ever, and you have this opportunity to learn from someone like that. I feel like you should do whatever you can to. And he would run classes on Wednesday nights, and there wouldn't be many of us, but I feel like I soaked in a lot of knowledge from him. And he helped me. I would say he helped me get signed to Ring of Honor, and I signed with Ring of Honor because of their relationship with New Japan. New Japan was always kind of number one goal, and that's the wrestling that I truly love is Japanese wrestling. So being able to wrestle there, and that was the greatest moment of my life. I feel like I love Japan. I love Japanese culture, and I feel like that nothing competes with Japanese wrestling, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I was going to say. I mean, is that your preferred style, the strong style? Obviously, you said it is. I mean, I remember seeing you in New Japan, and I look at you as like, I compare you to like a modern day Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen, and that's the kind of fit. I was like, yes, Brody King in New Japan is so perfect. And obviously, like you said, that's your style, and you prefer that strong style, smash mouth style.
Yeah, the King's Road style, the strong style. Like I love it all. Like the stuff that really made me fall in love with wrestling, aside from like old Ring of Honor, it was All Japan, early Noah, and like New Japan stuff. Watching Kinsuke Sasaki versus Kenta Kobashi is like that is like the pinnacle of wrestling for me. And stuff like that is stuff that's kind of missing from wrestling today. You got guys like Walter, and you got guys like Bronson Reed who are really trying to push that style, but I feel like that it's time for that style to make a big comeback. You have like the very spotty lucha style matches, or but like there's a void to be filled there with that Samoa Joe style, with that Kenta Kobashi, with the Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and I feel like that's kind of the role that I would like to play now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, no disrespect to anyone who does a high flying style. I mean, we all enjoy watching it as a fan. From a fan point of view, it's amazing seeing that high flying style. But it's been done so much now that I kind of feel like I've seen everything. Like nothing, I'm desensitized to it. No amount of flips really makes me go, oh wow, that was amazing now. And it's not because it's not amazing. It's just I've seen so much of it. But every time I see like a stiff elbow strike or a stiff punch or something, I cringe, and that's what makes me react now. So it's like that that strong style that's what's making people react nowadays. Like when Walter throws a chop, for example, and you hear it echo around the arena, that's what everyone loves. Or when when Samoa Joe, like you said, kicks someone's face in, that makes you react. But when I see like a 630 moonsault, which is impressive, don't get me wrong. I'm just like, all right, cool. But
that should like blow you away, and now it's like
that's it should. But yeah, the strong style, there's definitely a void for it there, that hard hitting style.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like when I see someone hit like a really nasty pile driver, it's like that's more impressive to me than like a shooting star press, which
Absolutely.
is like athletically it's so much more advanced than a pile driver. But I agree. There's definitely I feel like it was everyone trying to keep up with that style, myself included. It's like I was heavily trained in Lucha Libre, and when I started, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do flips, and I wanted to show people that I could do rope tricks and shit like that. But now it's like, you know what? I'm gonna leave that to guys like Bandito who can do it way better than me. And I'm just gonna for lack of a better term, probably my favorite Ring of Honor chant, I'm just gonna kick your fucking head in.
Yeah, that's a great chant.
You touched on Walter as well, because that's another one of your matches I watched today for PWG. What was it like being in there with Walter then, and what are those chops actually like?
Dude, I mean, wrestling for PWG was, that was my first real goal in wrestling. being from Southern California, we were always told like, oh, they don't book local talent, or they, if you're from California, you'll never break out. And that was like, why? Like, I'm gonna prove to you that you can. And 2 years into my career, I got asked to wrestle for PWG, and that was like, I was supposed to wrestle for Pro Wrestling Revolver for Sami Callihan. I'd just flown to Ohio, and I get a text from Rick Knox, and he just says, check your email right now. And I checked my email, and it was from Super Dragon. It said, hey, can you wrestle for PWG on Friday? And it was Wednesday. And I was like, oh, fuck. And like, so I I went up to Sam. I was like, hey, man, I got asked to do PWG on Friday. He goes, go home. And like, I landed. I just got into like the place I was staying, and I literally turned around and went right back to the airport and took the next flight back home. And I wrestled 2 days later at PWG. But yeah, that was unbelievable. And then getting in there with Walter, like, he was at the top of his game at the time. I mean, he still is, but that was really when he was on fire in the independents. And me and Tyler Bateman had a match against him and Thatcher that at All-Star Weekend. That's probably one of my favorite matches of all time. I feel like we were kind of unknown guys at the time, and that was really a match to kind of like elevate us. If you want to talk, I know people have their opinions about the Meltzer ratings, but Meltzer gave it like 4.5 stars. So it's like two guys that a lot of people didn't know about having a match at that caliber was really awesome. And then being able to have a world title match with Walter was, unbelievable, especially only being 2 or 3 years into my wrestling career.
Well, you mentioned being a big fan of PWG. I can only imagine what it was like to get to wrestle at the American Legion. Did you get to wrestle at the American Legion? Was that the first time? Yeah.
I wrestled. I wrestled my debut there, which was unbelievable. And then I wrestled. I think I wrestled 3 shows there, and it was cool because if you look at shows from 2014 and 2015, I'm in the crowd. Like, I'm facing the crowd, and a lot of people take photos and say like, oh, that's cool to see Brody there. And then now I get to do Bola, which is unbelievable. But being from the UK, I'm sure you don't know a lot of geography of Los Angeles, but in the San Fernando Valley, which is where I live, there's various cities, and Van Nuys is the city right next to Reseda.
Right.
So when I got announced from Van Nuys, California, the entire place like exploded, and like, I'm like holding back tears trying to look cool in my debut at PWG, but like that was like one of the coolest feelings ever was being, I think Excalibur said, right down the street. So that was a really awesome feeling.
Was the atmosphere as good as it looks? When you watch it? Because I'm so sad that I'll never get to go to the American Legion in Reseda, because it just looked like such a magical venue. It wasn't anything amazing to look at, but the fans and the wrestlers made it something special.
Yeah, I mean, especially being like a punk and hardcore kid, like my idea of a good Friday night is like crawling all over your friends and just being in a venue that's just packed to the gills and like beating each other up. So like that's the vibe that it has there. And when you're fearing that a wrestler like just might take you out at any moment, that's what I loved about it. And like you said, it just had a special feel. And the PWG crowd is still one of the greatest wrestling crowds ever, even at the Globe Theater. But it does miss a little bit of that magic that the Vets Hall in Reseda had.
Yeah, because the American Legion venue is kind of like the ECW arena for ECW.
Yeah,
like it. I don't know if you'll ever have that again, but PWG in general is just a special promotion. So it must have been cool to tick off Ring of Honor and PWG off your list, because to me, I mentioned Ring of Honor producing so many stars, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say PWG's made so many stars as well for wrestling. PWG and Ring of Honor between them have pretty much made every main eventer currently in North America. They've all been through those two companies, and I think that's testament to how good both of them are and how long they've both lasted as well, because a lot of people don't realize the history Ring of Honor has, for example, 18 years of history. And that's incredible. I think it must be one of the longest running promotions continually in North America at the moment, if not the second longest. So
especially with the caliber that they've been running at.
Yeah, exactly. Consistently, non-stop. It's just so impressive. And even like TNA, I know when it first started, it was NWA TNA. Now it's Impact, but it's been through variations where Ring of Honor has always just been Ring of Honor. It's never really changed, which I think is awesome. But yeah, it's cool talking about. I love talking about PWG and LA Ring of Honor. I could do it all day, but I'll shut up now.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list. As I say, you was in Bola. I mean, Bola is on my bucket list. I put it up there with attending WrestleMania because I've not yet been to a WrestleMania, unlike some prick. But I am. Yeah. So I'm Bola's up there with WrestleMania for me to go. It's on that bucket list. So that's 100% on my list.
Well, as a wrestling fan, I've been to both Bola and WrestleMania, and I have to say that Bola is more fun. I mean, I was there when Taker Shawn Michaels the second time, and I would rather go to a Bola than that.
You know what? I said this before to Jamie. I've been to WrestleMania 32, 33, and 34, but I preferred All In Chicago. The atmosphere at All In was so much better than any of the WrestleManias I've ever been to. That smaller crowd seemed like 100,000 people just because of how passionate everybody was. Whereas, like, when I went to WrestleMania, it was like there was 100,000 people waiting to go home because they'd been there for about 8 hours.
Well, the great part of Bola is like you're seeing the stars of tomorrow, essentially, and like you're gonna see guys that you've never heard of. You're gonna see guys that you never thought that you would see in person. Like when PWG brought Shingo in, like 10 years after he had already debuted for PWG, and like Shingo just tears the house down. It's like you just see these matches that you never would have thought you'd ever hear of, and you watch them absolutely go as hard as they can and have the absolute craziest matches they can. And I think that is what I love about wrestling. And you're not necessarily going to see that at a WrestleMania. You're going to see big spectacle and you're going to see cool entrance, but like the quality of wrestling, you'll never see more passion than in a Battle of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Just on a side note, I know you said you live in the San Fernando Valley. Have you ever seen Dave Grohl? Because I know he lives there, and I'm a huge Dave Grohl guy.
Yeah, your neighbor.
Don't say that. Don't say that. He's God to me. Him and Lemmy are like God to me. So I just thought, oh my God, I wonder if you ever bumped into him in the store or something. But
no, I'm sure he lives in a much nicer area than.
Fair point. You mentioned as well about seeing obviously your wrestling style, and you can wrestle with anybody. I know you wrestled Jungle Boy. I mean, what was it like getting in there with someone a lot smaller than you, like him?
I mean, those are my favorite kind of matches. Like my favorite match, I would say one of my favorite matches of all time is me versus Darby at PWG. And me and Darby worked three or four times, and like every time was like, my favorite. And working with guys like him and guys like Jack, like Jungle Boy, those are the best matches. You just have this like David and Goliath. Like he can do the best of what he does, and I can do what I do great, and put it all together. And when I wrestled Jungle Boy, it was his PWG debut. It was the last match that his dad got to see him wrestle, and so that was like, he always said that his mom hates watching him wrestle because she hates watching him get chopped and stuff. So the match with me was like especially like brutal, and you could hear his mom like screaming at me in the TVs. So it's like wrestling him was really, really awesome.
Yeah, like you said, of him and Darby, I think in my opinion, I think they're the future of AEW. I think they're going to be the two megastars at some point in that company, the way that they're doing.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that Jungle Boy is like the next Shawn Michaels, you know?
Yeah. So true. Yeah. That Darby and Jungle Boy are the two top faces in any promotion, let alone AEW.
I 100% agree.
Yeah,
both of them are great friends of mine, and they're both great people, and I love to see success from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously, before we start to wrap up and let you go as well, I know we mentioned teaming with PCO. What was it like going one-on-one with PCO?
I always say that it was always much better being on a team with him than being against him, because you're basically you're dealing with a wild animal. Like, he's going to like suggest things that even he doesn't know if he can do, which is very apparent in our Bola match, which is by no means it is a pretty match, but it is very physical and very entertaining. There is a part where he told me, he thought he could do a moonsault from the inside of the ring, outside of the ring, which maybe led to one of the greatest botches of all time, and that's when he landed on the top rope. And that will live in infamy forever. So it's like, if you're gonna do something, you better do it great. And but yeah, he's a maniac. Like, you could literally suggest anything and he'll do it. You'd be like, Carl, I'm gonna bring a gun in the ring and shoot you in the head. He goes, okay, I think I'll be all right. And you're like,
I can take that. Yeah. I'll be fine.
Hey, if it works with the gimmick, I'd be all right. He said. I'm going to watch that actually after this. I'm going to go and watch that now. You've told me I need to go and see this botch. That's next on my list. Obviously, before we let it go as well, please plug any social media, merchandise, the band.
So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brody X King. Most of my merch is at Pro Wrestling Tees under Brody King. You can follow my Twitch channel, twitch.tv Brody X King. That's about all I got. New God's Hate record probably coming in February of 2021.
Awesome.
I will be checking that out. And we've got Kerry back on Thursday as well, so we'll make sure we pass your regards on to him.
Oh yeah, Kerry's the man. We share our bond in gambling and the love of wrestling.
Didn't he mention that before?
He did mention gambling to us last time he was on, actually. Yes, so we'll. Yeah, he was complaining about his football teams. He had a bet on, and everything just went. As we say over here, it went tits up. Everything lost. So he was complaining about that. We'll definitely mention that on Thursday to him. Boy, he's become quite a regular at the moment. The stories that he tells are just incredible. It's just. I could listen to. It tells you about John Belushi and hanging out with Rush and things like this. I'm like, what a life you've lived, man!
I'm sure you've had no shortage of Kerry stories of the year.
He can hold a room like none other. Like,
yeah,
when he's in the room, everyone is fixated on him. He's definitely one of the best personalities I've ever met.
Yeah, I said to Callum the other day, I guess you could almost say he's the godfather of Ring of Honor. He's
100%.
But we will pass it on to him on Thursday. We'll get some more gambling stories from him. But man, I can't thank you enough for your time. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, I was marking out before we got you on. I'm just a Brody King mark, and it's bucket list, massive tick on the bucket list for me. This, so I can't thank you enough, man. And please come back on at some point, won't you?
Yeah, of course, man. I'm glad that I could do it.
We appreciate it, man. But for now, he's Brody King. We are Ringsiders.